So, I don't know if you've noticed, but getting old sucks.
Yeah, why's that?
Well, like just like little things. Like I got cut the other day at work, and it was like a surface cut. And I mean, it was bleeding, but in the past, like the next day, it would have been healed over. You wouldn't even be able to tell it was cut. It's now, I don't know, 4 days later, and there's still like it's still red, and it's kind of, I don't know, sore, and like you can definitely see the scar. So I think my body's just it's not healing like it used to.
Yeah, getting old will do that. I went for like a run the other day, and the next day I didn't really notice it. The day after that, I was just destroyed. It was funny. What do you like? I don't understand how we go from being able to bounce back within. And like, I mean, we're both in our 20s, so we shouldn't like. I feel like we should not be feeling a slowdown to like our 40s, but we're temples of doom, made of meat. It's awful.
Well, even like I don't know how you do with hangovers nowadays, but it can be brutal. Like even yesterday, so we went out, went for a walk, had dinner, came home, we barbecued, and I had a couple drinks outside, and it hit me like a freaking brick house. Like this morning, I am just dying.
Yeah. I had like some red wine on Friday night, and then like Saturday morning, it's like, man, I feel really nauseous and gross. Yeah, it's just like little things, man. We're getting old.
It sucks. So you're a red wine drinker, eh?
Well, the girlfriend's a red wine drinker, so I'm a red wine drinker by.
That's fair. See, I love me some beers. Like I think I was kind of against the whole craft beer movement. I was definitely more of like, I was like, well, Canadian is the only way to go because that's what Canadians drink. But I definitely am enjoying more of a flavorful beer at this point. We got this, what's it called? It was like St. Ambrose Oatmeal Stout beer. So goddamn good.
Yeah, there's some beers out there that just like when I was a kid, I would never ever drink them. But like as I get older, it's like, man, this is freaking delicious. I'm big into Sapporo and like Heineken and like Stella right now, like that, like kind of like lighter beer. But man, some of those beers, they're just too delicious. But the problem is with beers, it's got all those darn carbs. It's like eating 10 pieces of toast.
Oh, whatever. It depends what you're doing. I mean, if you're not very active and you don't eat great, but it could be bad. But like yesterday, I had breakfast. Then you came and hung out, and like I had those like candies or whatever. But I like went for a run. We went for like an hour hike by the river. Had some dinner and had some beer, and I was like, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Balances.
As long as you're like you like live. Yeah, everything in moderation. You gotta balance things out. So
Absolutely.
if you eat too much, you should probably have a workout or two.
Well, that's one of my new rules too. Is I'm going to try and do, instead of just drinking like my 24 of Canadian on the weekend, I'll get like 6 nice like good tasting beer that maybe are a little bit more expensive and actually enjoy them.
Yeah, instead of just plowing through them,
Yeah.
just have like 1 or 2 during like a barbecue or dinner, and then have 2 tomorrow night.
Well, because I'm actually, no, not that I'm afraid, but I kind of think that I might have a little bit of like alcoholic tendencies a little bit. So if I start drinking, I just won't eat dinner. Like in my mind, I'd rather drink more and eat less, and that gets me into some problems.
Yeah, that's that university student mentality coming through.
Yeah. Well, then I decide that it's a good idea to just leave all my friends and go somewhere in the middle of a party and tell anyone. I mean, not that that's a thing. It needs to be discussed on the internet, I guess. So.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. All right. So, you want to get into this thing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Dad, I just want to finish this game. Okay, Dad, I'm coming. Yeah, I'm almost at the end. What happened to summer?
Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Game Boy.
It ain't over till it's over.
Chill out, Dad.
Welcome to the Podtendo Podcast, where we analyze, reminisce, and replay the glory of old Nintendo games. We can be contacted on Twitter at Podtendo Podcast, email us at podtendo@gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/podtendo. I'm your host, Mick, and I will be joined every episode by a special guest. This week's guest is...
Tyson.
Hooray!
Yeah. Still haven't got that host status.
No, not yet. It's the contracts. You know, we're really. You should. Yeah, we're kind of bitchy about our contracts over here at Podtendo. So it's.
Gotta go push everything through the lawyers. Lawyers are holding things up.
Well, and we lost all that sponsorship money too. So maybe we should start a Kickstarter and see if we can make a living off this thing.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, we would actually deliver on our promises, unlike 95% of the Kickstarters out there. So
Heyo.
give us some money, unlike freaking video game developers that just like to take your money and don't do anything with it.
What's that stupid Chameleon game that's been like supposed to be coming out for like 2 years now that everyone's really excited about?
Oh yeah, that's like the Banjo-Kazooie. Yeah, it's the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, it's like something called like Raji something, and it's supposed to be some like weird chameleon. It looks terrible.
Yeah,
like,
and there's a bat on his head.
yeah, like you know what was kind of unnecessary? The 3D platformers at one point. Like I think we've evolved past that. You know?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where people just need like it's Yooka-Laylee.
Oh, that's the one.
I think people hold on to like those hopes and dreams, like, oh man, that type of game is just so good. And you're like, genres of games age and they kind of fall out of favor. And when you have so many good versions of it, it's like, well, you're really just rehashing something that's been done a million times. How many times can you reskin Mario 64? Like, honestly, it's basically what everybody's been trying to do.
Well, ask
Like,
any sports franchise or Call of Duty. Literally every single year is the correct answer. So
Yeah, well, I'm not a big fan of first-person shooters anymore. I used to be a Call of Duty fanboy because it was nice, like getting like sick kills and being like 25-5 and stuff like that. But it comes to that point, you're like, man, this is so stupid. It's the same thing every single year. And then like now Overwatch is this huge big thing, and I've played it. It's the exact same as every other first-person shooter. It's like, oh, look, this guy actually has special abilities. You're like, it's still a first-person shooter. It's so boring.
well, I'm curious. I think I should actually. I bought. Speaking of Kickstarter games that are awful, the Mighty Number 9.
Oh.
I kind of want to play that at some point, but I had this like theory that it was PS Vita compatible, so I was going to download it onto my PS Vita, which I didn't have, which I was going to buy, so I could save money and return a $20 game. I should really just play it on my PlayStation 4 and just call it a day, you know?
Yeah, probably.
Like, I'm curious to see why it's so bad. Like, I'd love to do a comparison, like do like a Mega Man 2 Mighty Number 9 show and just say like, this is what a good version of this game looks like, or something like that, right? Or maybe more of like a Mega Man X kind of type game. So
Yeah, and it's interesting to me. It's like, I don't understand how like a 2D side scroller that is essentially a Mega Man game, why it got all the hate. Like, I haven't played it, but yeah, basically everybody would just like hated that movie or that game as soon as it came out, and it doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense because
yeah.
all the pieces are there. So obviously, like, there's something that's not right. Like, maybe it's not polished, maybe it's just like really rough around the edges, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess I should probably bust it open and play it and actually see like where the hate's coming from. Because I know sometimes people are just like overcritical for no reason on some things because it doesn't fit their standards. But sometimes it's still a relative, like as long as the game's not broken.
Yeah.
Like that Sonic Boom or whatever that came out. Like I watched playthroughs of that and I'm like, this looks just the worst thing ever. Like, oh my goodness. So
Yeah, Sega can't seem to make a good game these days.
I guess in theory, if we played it on our quote unquote Wii U's, we could get away with playing Mighty Number 9 and use it as for this show. So
That's true.
even if maybe it was a copy that was on a PS4, but technically it's still a Wii U game. So
Technically.
because that's weird. Because actually, I think I did something. I think I played a PlayStation version of a Nintendo game for this podcast.
Yeah, and I may have done a similar thing.
Yeah, all right. Well, this week's game is, or episode, I don't think we do weekly episodes, so I think this episode's game is Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
There-
Well, Dawn of Souls.
Okay. That's we'll get into that. I think I have we'll talk about that. So, Final Fantasy 1. The original release date for the NES version was December 18th, 1987. How Long to Beat has this game at 17 hours. Actual retail price was $50. If we factor in inflation, it's a whopping $94 nowadays. Current eBay price, you can get a loose cartridge for about $27.99, and it goes up to about for a sealed copy, like fresh from in the box, for $100. eShop
That's actually not bad.
eShop prices, the Wii you can get it for $4.99. The PSN has a copy of the remastered for about $10.
Yeah, and that's the one you want to get.
Yeah, well, it's the definitive. It's Final Fantasy 1 and the Japanese 2. So it's two games for the price of one. It looks better, it sounds better, it has an easy mode. That's nice.
Yes. Yeah, especially because some of those dungeons can be the equivalent of pushing your way through hell.
Yeah, we'll get into that giant's hallway, but I knew about it and I fell for it, and it was awful. It was like the worst 30 minutes of my life.
Every step, man.
So, some development details for this game. Who doesn't know the story behind this game? I mean, probably most people who aren't losers like us. I mean, not saying that losers would know the story, but I mean, like, really, it is kind of a loser thing to know. The story,
especially off the top of your head.
The story goes that Hironobu Sakaguchi wanted to make a role-playing game for Square, but his first attempts were unsuccessful. After the success of Dragon Quest in Japan, they gave him one last attempt. If he failed, this would be his last game he'd ever make, and he'd leave the industry. Hence, Final was chosen fittingly as the title. The original title was supposed to be Fighting Fantasy, but there was a clash between a trademark with a popular Japanese book series, so they took kind of his final attempt at this fantasy game and made Final Fantasy. The game had a 7-person development team. That just is so small.
I know,
like,
especially compared to like modern games.
Like, we should get 5 other people and see if we can figure out how to like program a game and see if we can just make indie games, because I'm sure it can't be that hard. Like, you hear these guys that make indie games that are like that Fox guy that made Underworld. It's just like this huge success. Like, why aren't we doing that?
Yeah, and you know, he actually like Undertale's one of those games we should totally do on a side quest, because it's pretty amazing. But that being said, on the flip side of the coin, look at No Man's Sky. That game was promised to be so much, and it's a worthless bag of garbage.
That's too bad. Yeah. They're trying to sell me that at like my EB Games, and I was like, I'll be honest with you, I have no interest in this game. It sounds just like super asinine. I don't know. It's not for me.
Well, it's one of those things where like they promised the moon, and they were like, oh yeah, it's going to have all these sweet features, and then you get into it and you're like, wow, this is an unpolished turd. I'm really glad that you made all those promises. It's like Fable all over again. Peter Molyneux has struck again.
It sucks. And then, sorry, my last note, just back on topic. Based on tabletop games, Sakaguchi really pushed for the idea of getting the players to pick their own team to make for a dynamic gameplay. So just like if you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, you could play all warriors. The game is maybe a little bit harder or easier, but it's more fun if you can kind of mix and match who you're playing as.
Yeah, and it kind of makes it like your own adventure, because you can kind of name your own characters and stuff.
Yep. The controls, really simple. Up goes up, down goes down, right goes right, left goes left. So, I mean, I don't think it gets more simple than that. Everything's in a grid format, or grids, or what are those called? Like, what's the menu called? Menu system.
Yeah.
So what version are you playing?
I was playing the PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy Origins collection.
Yeah, I was playing it was the PSX version. Whatever's available on the PSN store. I just downloaded on my PSP, so that's the version I'm playing.
Nice.
It has Final Fantasy 1 and 2. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. I also feel like Dawn of Souls might have been a GBA release.
Yeah, essentially like what it is, it's Dawn of Souls, like basically the Dawn of Souls is just called, like, instead of calling it remasters, Dawn of Souls.
Okay, all right. This one was nice because there was an easy mode to it, so that might have been contributing to why I think the game was so simple. I wish the easy mode decreased the amount of random encounters, though.
Oh my god, that'd be so nice.
Ugh. And then the last light, there is some strategy to kind of picking your party and developing kind of your skill set. For the most part, I don't know if there's a wrong answer.
I feel like if you went all thieves, you would have a hell of a time.
Yeah, you'd be really fast, I guess.
Yeah.
Mages the monks hit really hard. We'll kind of talk about that too, I guess, when it's party selection. But like maybe all white mages?
Yeah, that would probably be the worst. But you want to know what? I feel like an all-white mage could be kind of overpowered if you did it right. Oh yeah,
because you could get those spells that are good against the undead. And most of the characters are undead in the first half of the game.
Yeah, and then you just basically have to like make sure that you have all the best single attacks for stuff that don't. But again, why would you want to do that?
Once you become a white wizard, don't you get some really powerful spells too in like Ultima?
I think so.
So it might be a struggle early on, but then I think you would probably get to the point where you'd be super overpowered at the end of the game, and like no one would touch you.
Yeah, basically broken.
Huh. Interesting. So what are your... this is not my first time playing the game. What are your first memories on this game?
Buying the Game Boy Advance Dawn of Souls collection.
Okay.
And playing through it. I remember getting to, I want to say, like, I was on the ocean, and that's about the last thing I remember playing from that game. I think because I didn't have a guide, I was just like kind of like just playing through it, whatever. And with the amount of random encounters and not having a guide, just added up to a frustrating time. So I ended up just playing Final Fantasy 2 and just skipped one on the GBA. But that's, I think, my first memories of this game.
Yeah, I want to say... Well, I mean, I only played this game because of Final Fantasy 7. It wasn't like I found this game earlier before that point, so it is at least 97, 98. So probably Game Boy Advance, because I think I was just about everything Final Fantasy at that point. I want to say I had a friend that owned the game too, but again, it's one of those ones where it's like you can't just pick it up and play. Like, it seems like it's kind of a commitment to start playing it. You're like, well, if you're not gonna let me borrow this and like give me your NES for the weekend or a couple of weeks, why am I doing this? So
yeah, it's like, why even start?
I did get a digital copy on the Wii in college, and I remember playing through that. But at one point, I figured that my team wasn't very good. I can't remember what it was. But anyways, basically my team wasn't very good, and I had to restart to like have it a little bit easier for myself, and I just gave up. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I think I wrote a note. Again, one day I will play a game on this podcast that I actually played as a child, that I actually have like nostalgic little child emotions for. Maybe that's on the NES or the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, well, we were like, you were just born when this game came out, and I wasn't even born yet, so it's hard to kind of have those nostalgic kid memories, because like you don't even really remember anything till you're like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we get to Super Nintendo and like N64, we'll have more like actual like first memories and stuff. But
yeah, this is more of like, we're doing the foundation, we're doing the groundwork, we're doing the hard stuff now, because once we get to the N64 and like GameCube, we're not going to come back and play this game.
Yeah.
Spoilers, but
yeah,
I'm never going to play this game again. So
yeah, me too. It's one of those games where like, I'm glad I played through it, but damn, there's so many other good games out there.
Yes. All right, so, hey, narrator bitch, read the story for us. Oh, sorry, I guess could be a little bit more kosher. Now it's time for the story with the narrator bitch.
Oh, sure. Call upon the narrator when it's convenient for you, but I never get to be a host of the show. I never get to actually tell any of my opinions. I just get to read the story. This is... What's that? I'll be fired if I don't do this? Well, I suppose I'll get right to it then. The world is veiled in darkness. The wind stops. The sea is wild, and the earth begins to rot. The people wait, their only hope, a prophecy. When the world is in darkness, 4 warriors will come. After a long journey, 4 young warriors arrive, each holding an orb. There, you happy? Did I do a good job? Hey, what's that? Papers? Fired? Oh no, this is more tragic than what's going on in the world of Final Fantasy 1. Wink!
Alright, and with that, the level notes. Start with the party selection. I guess that's the first thing you do when you do start up the screen. Who was in your party?
I had 2 warriors and a red mage, or a black mage and a white mage. And it was basically me. I was one of the warriors, my dog was the other warrior, my cat was the black mage, and then my girlfriend was the white mage.
Nice. I went with 3 warriors and a red mage. We had Mick, Tyson, and Scrumph for warriors, and my red mage was named Toxcab.
Why'd you go red mage?
Because they can use some black magic spells as well as white magic spells, and they have fairly decent attack.
Fair enough.
Because I wanted to do the 3 warrior system, I needed basically a healer. So my red mage kind of doubles as my white mage, but he also hits pretty hard too.
That's fair.
And I didn't want to lose out on not being able to get black magic spells, so...
Yeah, true enough.
So there are 6 different characters or 6 different classes to choose from.
Yep.
Unless you listened to our top 10 podcast, and Tyson will argue with me there's only 4.
I said I felt like there was only 4.
All right, well then maybe we learned something. Maybe I'm right.
Yeah, probably.
So, we were wrong on that one. Here's our redact. If anyone ever listens and sends us... No one has ever sent us mail, so I don't know what I'm, like, concerned about. I think I'm just doing this because I'm bored, so... But, 6 classes. Fighter, Mage. Fighter basically is going to be your... Warrior is going to be your guy with the armor. Monk or Mage is... I think it's Monk, right?
Yeah, it's Monk. They're your glass cannons. They're the high hit, low health.
Yeah. Thieves, who are really quick. I don't think they have, like, outside of that, they're kind of like a rogue character.
Yeah, they're your evasive guy that is basically kind of your utility character that can do really high damage, but if he ever does get hit, he's gonna get shredded.
Then we've got the white mage, the healer, black mage. His magic usually does damage, and then the red mage is kind of a mix, and that's our 6 classes.
Yeah.
So, starting off this game, you just start outside of a castle. What's the first thing you do when you start outside of a castle? You go into the castle.
Yes, and you go talk to the king.
Yeah, you learn that Golbez stole the princess, and that you should go save her. Seems pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
So the first level you walk up to is the Temple of Chaos. There's some items. You fight Golbez. I did a little bit of training beforehand, so I walked around outside and fought the imps and the wolves. So I probably had my party at almost like level 5 before I fought them. So I'm wondering if that's kind of helped with the easy of that battle.
Yeah, and you're going to want to... Because unlike other Final Fantasy games, you learn... you actually buy your magic spells. So you'll want to like kind of grind up some cash and then kind of pimp out your mages, because if not, they're basically useless.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll get to that actually, I guess, in Provoca or whatever it's called, because there was another kind of money issue I kind of ran into. From there, we go back to the castle. You have 2 options. You could marry your princess, become a king yourself, and hang out there, or we can be true heroes, and the king will build us a bridge, and we can go cross the bridge to the game's opening.
And of course, why marry the girl?
Yeah, well, you're noble, right? I mean, it's a role-playing game, but you really can't do anything. It's basically a fixed track. So,
yeah.
Yes, you learn about the Light Warriors, who you are. You're the 4 Light Warriors. You each have an orb, and you're prophesized to bring the world from the brink of chaos. So, we'll move along the coast to the town of Provoca. You can get some new spells, items, and equipment. I had the 3 warriors, and they cost just a buck-ton to suit up. Like, their armor and their weapons are so expensive.
Yeah, that's kind of a running theme for warriors throughout the game.
Yeah, so the one thing, there was the walkthrough I was following, there was something called the Peninsula of Power. So the top 2 grids on the very eastmost northern peninsula, you actually can encounter enemies that you won't find till like later on in the game.
Yeah.
It's just a design error. There's a couple other games that have similar kind of features, but I kind of took advantage of this. I treated them almost like a boss fight. I'd go there with a tent, heal up, walk back and forth, fight them. All my guys would level up. I'd get 2,000 gil, maybe do that once or twice, go back to town, spend my money so I could go fight them again. And I think I grinded till I had about 15,000 gil.
Yeah, I just literally put on a movie and then just walked back and forth and just mashed out a lot of fights.
Yeah.
Just in front of dungeons. It was painful, but needs to be done.
Yeah, so I was pretty powerful. Like, leveling at this point I don't think will ever be an issue. So that'll be kind of nice that I don't have to sit and grind, even though I get lost occasionally and end up getting 3 levels before I find my ways. So
yeah.
But yes, if you're playing this game, Peninsula of Power, check it out. It's definitely worth it, just to kind of ease the game a little bit. Not that you really need to grind in this game, I think, with the amount of battles, but it's kind of my safety blanket.
Yeah, if you kind of need, if you want to kind of grind up your levels so you have a little bit of a buffer, now's the best time to do it, like any RPG early on.
All right, so then back to Provoca. The town is being terrorized by pirates. It took me a while to find these pirates. I was expecting to be all over the place and be kind of like a Team Rocket scenario where you're walking around fighting everyone. It's just one pirate sitting by a building, and there's 9 enemies. I was so strong I one-hit killed literally everything.
Yeah, that'll happen.
So it took me 2 turns. Everyone attacked once, and I got a boat. So that was kind of sweet.
Whoa. Free boat ride for 3.
Now, who should I take? Keeve?
Yes.
And T-Pain.
Cool.
Yeah, now you can go hit the high seas.
Oh, and the other thing, the nice thing about the PSX version is, and the easy mode is, I don't know if you've ever played the original, but there was no auto aim. So you would put your commands in. So let's say you do 60 damage to an enemy. It has 300 health. You have to keep track in your mind. Oh, I've hit him 5 times. That's it. So if you queue up all your guys on, let's say, the last, he's going to die next hit, and you have all guys, 4 guys hit, you're going to get hit, miss, miss, miss. So basically you've wasted a turn.
Yeah, which just adds to the difficulty.
Yeah, so you really have to pay attention to that in the original one. This one, it's kind of nice because you could just button mash. So, I don't know, I kind of wish I had played it maybe even on hard just to have the auto aim off, because I think it would make you think more.
Yeah, when I originally played it without the auto aim, it gets frustrating though. Like, it really does, because like you'll be on that last kind of like, you really need to make sure all your hits hit. And to have like somebody just like miss can almost like end up just killing off a character. And if you're like me, your white mage likes to die.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, Mick died a couple times. I think he died right before I leveled up on the Peninsula of Power ones. And it's just, everyone levels up at the exact same rate, but then everyone is kind of screwed up. So Mick now, I think he's died twice, or he was like stoned once. So he's way far behind. He's like 3,000 experience behind everyone else.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Tyson is actually the workhorse. Tyson has like, I was looking, whatever the random probability is of stats you get, you might be hitting the perfect or like the max bonus for everyone. So
Nice.
He has something like 45 more hit points than the next guy beside him. Same equipment, everything else, just for whatever reason he lucked out and he's just got the lucky roll of the dice. So
Yeah, and it's kind of nice because if you can identify which one is your workhorse, because sometimes that does happen, then you're like, I'm gonna gear you up, and you are gonna be my cannon. So,
yeah. So from there we jump on the open seas. We head to Elfheim. The elf prince had a curse put upon him. Damn him. I did load up on some more spells. I think only my red mage knew spells, so I didn't really buy that many. And then there was a mithril sword here, but it cost a lot. Like, it was like, what, 20... Was it 20 grand? Or 20 gil or whatever it's called? Gil?
I want to say like 15, but yeah, 15, 20.
It was a lot. So basically I ended up having to go grind some money at the Peninsula of Power, come back here so I could buy the mithril swords for everyone. To be honest with you, they don't really make that big of a difference. Like, my team was so powerful, I was just, I think, wasting money at this point, so that sucks.
Yeah, and I have a bad habit of like, I can't leave a town unless I have all my equipment that I want from that town.
Yeah, no, that's
so I'll
me
just
too.
sit outside that town and just like grind out of it.
Yeah.
So I think I forget what town it was, but yeah, I just sat outside of it, just like literally grinding just so I could buy armor. And then I went to the next town, and armor was better, so it was fun.
Yeah, that sucks. So then we head to we go to save the elf prince. From here, we go to the Marsh Cave. It's an underground maze. It's not too complicated if you do have a guide to follow.
Yeah.
And on the 3rd level, you fight some psycho demons, and your reward is a crown. This is also where the Hall of Giants is. It's a little circular path of, maybe 20 steps?
Yeah, and every one of those steps will make you hate your life even more.
Yeah, so every step you go into a predetermined battle between like a hill gigas and a lizard, and it sucks. It's like extremely hard.
Yeah, I actually thought my game was glitching out.
Me too.
When that originally happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell is going on? So like, it was like every single step, and I was like, this is messed. What is this? And then I went to my guide and was like, oh yeah, don't go left there. It's like, sweet.
Oh.
So I ended up just turning it off because like I was about halfway through it. I'm like, I'm really not in the mood to just literally push through another like 10 battles. And the nice thing is I reset, went back into it, and I went the other way, like the direct route.
Very
and I was
nice.
like, oh wow, I didn't even get to one random encounter.
Oh wait,
Like, ugh.
sorry, that's actually the Terra Cave, the next level, not the Marsh Cave. So I jumped ahead there.
Oh, yes.
Anyways,
That's all good.
the Hall of Giants is coming up. Sucks.
Brutal.
So with the crown, we go to the wrecked castle, because I clearly didn't go to the wrecked castle first. Oops. You give the crown to the king that's there, and he turns out to be the villain Astros.
Yes.
Who's Astros?
Astros is he not the whatchamacallit?
He's not like the main bad guy. He's just some guy that put the curse on the elf prince, right?
Yeah, he's just some random spellcaster.
Okay, all right. I thought he was maybe, yeah, because I kind of know the story of this game, but I don't really know the story of this game, so I'm confused as to who the main bad guy is.
Yeah, there's not really an overarching. That's one thing about this story that kind of sucks. Is there's not really a big baddie. Like in Final Fantasy, you're kind of like, oh, well, it's obviously the Shinra Corp, and then like later on you learn about Sephiroth and all that stuff.
See, I think the first guy you fight, Golbez, I think he ends up being the main bad guy.
Could be. I haven't beat it yet, so I don't even know.
Yeah, like I don't want to spoil
bosses.
anything for our listeners or even you, but like I'm pretty sure either Astros or Golbez comes back into the game, so keep your eyes out.
Right.
He gives you the magical eye. With the magical eye, you can go give it to the blind witch right near kind of the start of the game. She'll be so excited that she can see that she'll give you the jolt potion. What does a jolt potion do? It wakes up the elf prince. What a roundabout way of doing that, eh?
Yeah, here's a fetch quest for a fetch quest for a fetch quest.
You do get the mystical key here. So in all the levels, all the castles up until this point, there was always a door that was lost or locked by the mystical key.
Yep.
That is fine and all, but like, am I going to go back to every part of the game and check every single door with this key to like get these fucking, like, one might be a wooden helm. I have an iron helm. It's better than, like, why am I going out of my way to get a fucking useless item like that?
Yeah, and even some of the like the weapons that you get, you literally can buy in the next town for dirt cheap. You're like, why am I going to grab all this stuff? So I just ended up grabbing like the two main ones.
Perfect.
Because essentially, like the mithril stuff, the mithril weapons are kind of like mithril weapons and mithril armor are kind of the best.
Yeah.
For a good chunk of the game. So it's like, I'll just grab that stuff that I need, grab the powder keg, and then get out of there.
Yeah, well, and there is, I think the first castle, you get the nitro powder, and you have to take this to the dwarfs so that they can open up the waterway. So, because basically you're just in this giant lake, and they have to blow open a waterway so you can escape into the ocean. I forgot about this. I went and collected everything, and then it took me like maybe another 20 minutes of walking around to finally be like, oh, I missed the nitro powder. That's stupid.
Yeah, the guide I was saying said specifically to pick it up to save myself some time. So.
I wish I followed those things a little bit more, just concretely. So, but off to the open oceans. At this point, I was leaving. My team was at level 21.
I want to say it's around that strength, maybe only at like level 15.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that you can beat the game at level 35, so I figured I haven't even got the first of the 4 crystals that we're trying to save. So if I'm at level 21, I will have to do 0 grinding for the rest of the game. So
fair enough.
You go to the broken down city of Melmond. There's some great armor, but it costs a truckload. So maybe this is that place where you needed to buy all the armor for your team.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is definitely the spot, because like this is the spot where you sit outside, because there's even good magic, but the magic's really expensive, and I had to get life because my characters die.
So from here, we're going to go on a fun quest that's definitely not just backtracking for the next hour. Yeah. Here we go to the Terra Cave, or the Earth Cave, as you will. There is the Hall of Giants just to the left of this area when you first enter the Terra Cave, so be cautious. We've already kind of had our little disclaimer.
Yeah, avoid that path like the plague.
Yeah, so you head down the levels. There's several levels until you fight the vampire. He'll give you a jewel, and which you have to again give to another character. So leave the area as soon as you can. Don't go any further, because you end up just being stuck for another like 10 minutes walking around finding a sealed door. So get the jewel and leave.
Yeah.
From there you have to go to the Titan's Cave. He wants the jewel, so if you give the big Titan on the screen the jewel, he pauses and moons the screen and shows you that sweet Titan ass. Like, I don't know if your version had that. I don't know what he looked like originally, but just distinctively you can see like his big plump butt.
Yep.
Kind of.
It's like that Batman shot from the new Batman vs Superman.
Yeah, just
unnecessary, but it's in there.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's weird. It's very sexy for a video game.
Yeah. He also eats it.
Oh,
he gets crunchy.
Oh, okay.
You're like, man, I went through all that so you can have a snack.
Yeah, so you basically walk through his cave. There's an old man on the other side who gives you the earth rod, and with the Earth Rod, that allows you to unlock the locked door in the Terra Cave. So back to the Terra Cave.
Hooray.
I don't like how much circular things happen in this game. Like, why can't they just give you the right item when the Marsh Cave? Why can't you just get the Jolt Potion? Why do you have to give a crown and then get a magical eye and then get the Jolt Potion? You know, it's kind of.
I think it's one of those things where it's easy. Like once you already have the world built up, to just be like, well, let's just add some more fetch quests to kind of,
I guess,
increase the length.
Yeah, it does fill out the world a little bit more if everyone's interactive and you have to go back and talk to people.
And then it makes, like, you know, having to, when you talk to somebody, having to go back and talk to them kind of adds resolutions, I guess.
Yeah, all right.
But unnecessary.
So in the Terra Cave, way easier the second time through to get to the locked door. You fight the Earth Fiend at the very bottom level. He went down after like 1 or 2 rounds of just straight attacking from my guys.
Yeah, not the hardest guy, especially if you're kind of prepared.
Yeah.
At that point.
And then from there, what's it called? Mormont or whatever is better. What was the town? Melmont.
Melmont.
The town of Melmont is recovered and the Earth stops rotting, which is kind of like it's great. That's great writing, you know?
Yeah. Well, especially because you're like, you go and you see this terrible piece of junk run downtown, and then like because you killed like the vampire and the lich, you're like, oh wow, I actually made this chunk of land no longer terrible to live.
Yeah. Well, just like the Earth is rotting. That's such a cool literary device because you imagine exactly what's going on. Because like the wind stopped and the seas became wild, and you're like, okay, I kind of get that. And then the Earth is rotting, and I'm like, oh, because everyone's seen that rotten land before, right? Like, put a bunch of water on like a stagnant little patch of grass, and it just becomes gross. And I'm like, oh, that's such cool, you know? I like those little things.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I wish, you know how they're doing like they're gonna do the Final Fantasy VII remake. Imagine this, but with like updated graphics. Like that would be really cool, especially since the bestiary, like all the beasts in this are actually really interesting. Like you're fighting vampires, you're fighting giants, you're fighting these giant like lizards, you're fighting like tigers. There's a huge variety of these cool, awesome characters that you want to just like see more of. But the sprites do a good job. I think it would
work really well too because it's simple. Not a lot of people remember this game and like treasure it. So you could have a lot of fun, and basically it could just be an open world giant adventure, and you could have a lot of fun. Whereas Final Fantasy VII, people are gonna fucking hate it.
Yeah, well, it's at that point where people have hyped that game to a point of preposterous expectations. So like even if you do it perfectly, people are going to find flaws in it. And I think with something like this, like imagine like, you know, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, so you could hop on the open ocean on your like ship and everything. Imagine that in this game.
Yep.
And then being able to go on the land and have it be like kind of almost Assassin's Creed, you and your buddies behind you,
or whatever, like a Fallout or like a Skyrim type setting, right, where you're just kind of trugging along and hanging out. And
absolutely, I think that would be like a crazy successful game.
Yep.
Especially like if you did it with like if it was all one big open world and it was decently graphics, man. This game would be like a 10 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, like Final Fantasy VII, they're not just going to update the graphics. They're going to change the battle system. They're going to tweak with this, and it's going to be bad. So anyone that's listening to this that's like hoping that Final Fantasy VII is good, just know you're in, like, it's going to suck ass. So
yeah, sorry man, or girl. Yeah, it's not going to be good.
No.
It, like even if it's perfect, you're going to look back, because even playing Final Fantasy VII now, you go back, it's kind of dated.
There is a sweet version for the PlayStation 4 that they've released that has 3 cheats that they don't tell you about. So the 2 trigger buttons, if you hit the left stick, it speeds up the game so it moves double speed.
Oh,
so all of a sudden, grinding parts, moving around, it's no longer a challenge. Like, literally, you can just kind of zip around. What is it? The one gives you more experience or something like that if you hit the right stick. And then if you hit both together, it's an instant limit break.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so, like, those little grindy parts, you're like, I get this. Like, the only reason I'm not beating this boss is because I don't want to walk around for 2 hours. Limit break, boo-boo-boo. Limit break, boo-boo-boo. Limit break, doo-doo-doo.
Yep. And then if you got extra XP on just by beating that boss, you probably are where you should be.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And it'd be kind of fun because those bosses that are going to be more difficult, or if, like, I've never played through, I don't know what all of Yuffie's limit breaks look like. How sweet would that be to just like do the instant limit breaks and like max out their limit breaks super early on and get to experience your party in like all 7 characters full limit breaks and actually go to your way to find their final limit break. That'd be a cool way of experiencing that game again, you know?
Yeah, I think like that would actually make it really interesting because so getting the limit breaks is really hard, especially like you almost want to like have your guys attack somebody because like I think I had Red 13 one time and he like never ever got attacked, so he never ever got a limit break, and everybody else was on like their third and he's still sitting on his like a second limit break, his like first or his like tier 1 level 2. It's like, man, this sucks.
Yeah. So but you could, I think one of them is just how many enemies you kill with your limit break. So I mean, if it's every battle, or if those battles were like 9 guys show up for, just use your limit break. So kind of think that might be a $20 I invest in that game at some point.
Yeah, it couldn't hurt.
I'll see you. I have a couple more games I have to clear up, but if I do get bored, that might be one of those ones where I invest in.
Yeah, it's one of those games where it's got a lot of good times.
And really, the one thing we're learning is Final Fantasy VII is just the best Final Fantasy game. You could be literally talking about any other game. Final Fantasy VII will be brought up and discussed in nauseum. So,
especially with us.
So back to our first Final Fantasy Uno.
Yes.
From this point, you have to go boating around the world. I tried to follow the guide step by step, like go left, go down, go over. I ended up completely lost, and looking back at a map, I literally went all over the planet. Like, it was awful. Like, it was 45 minutes to maybe an hour of just being lost at sea, and then finally I had to pull a map up, and I was like, well, I think I just passed that part, so if I go down and over here, it's super confusing. This was probably the worst part of the game for me.
Yeah, I didn't travel anywhere without a map. Well, that's not true. I didn't travel anywhere in my ship without a map, or in a dungeon without a map.
That's very smart.
It's so easy to get lost.
Yeah. So then from there, we were wanting to stop at Crescent Lake. From here, but new armor, new weapons. I had tons of, from being lost for an hour, I had tons of money. Like, money's not an issue for me anymore. There are 12 dwarfs, sages, wizards standing around in a circle in this town. If you talk,
Old dudes.
Yeah, if you talk to all of them, you obviously get a canoe, because that's how you get canoes.
Of course.
It's like when you're a kid. If you talk to 12 old men, you just get a canoe.
Yeah, that's how you get canoes. You don't buy them.
That might be a family rule, actually. If I ever have kids, if they're like, Dad, can we have a canoe? I was like, after you talk to 12 old men and go around and count them, like, duh. It's just a basic rule of life.
Yeah, it's like Final Fantasy raised me right.
There is a series of rivers. The canoe works in the rivers, so you go through the little maze, which takes you to the the tornado. Yes, to the tornado, to the volcano.
Yes.
In here, you have to walk across the lava, and the floor hurts you.
Yep.
I don't know why. It seems silly.
Unnecessary.
Yep. Sorry, you were going to say something?
I went a slightly different route. I didn't go straight to the volcano.
All right. Explain to me your crazy logic on this extra route that you took.
I wanted the Highwind really badly because I hate cruising around in the fucking boat because it's terrible.
Oh, man. You got a ship?
So, just to like save myself from always having to go around everything, I just was like, you know what? Because if you go into the ice cave and you beat it, which is a horrible, horrible decision, and I don't recommend doing it. I recommend going the volcano route first.
All right.
If you battle your way through it, you do end up getting the Levistone, and if you get the Levistone and then you go to the desert, and then you activate it, you end up getting the Highwind. Then you can cruise around. And I also, before I went to the volcano, I went and upgraded all my classes, because now that you can fly around, you can just do that. So I figured I'd just get that little side quest out of the way. And it's pretty quick. It's like you basically go to this one town, kind of grab a bunch of weapons and stuff, and then I think you just go to the Citadel, and after you beat the Citadel, then you go to the Dragon's Cave or Bahamut's Island, talk to Bahamut, and then he'll be like, yo, wait, well done, let me give you guys some upgrades. And then that's when your warriors can become like knights, and your white mages become wizards, and black mages wizards, and etc., etc.
That's fun.
Yeah, and I just wanted to get that done because then I could go back and get all my good potions before going into the volcano.
So did your guide tell you to do this, or like did you look at... Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I was following one, and it said go to the volcano first, because that is the actual way of doing it. But it just couple like 2 little side questy things, and then you have the high wind. Then it's just easy to get anywhere you need to go.
So I have to do all that stuff basically when I start playing again. All right, well, it doesn't sound too bad though.
No, it's a really quick.
All right. So now that we're both at the volcano, a lot of chests in this area that you can kind of walk around, especially if you have a map. Go to your way to grab them. It doesn't take that long. It's not as hard as the Terra Cave, I found.
Yeah, this cave is actually pretty decent because I actually found that the random encounters were either really toned down
because when you're walking on lava, monsters don't hurt you. And there's so many lava paths. So basically, I just stuck to the lava paths and used whatever I had, like my simple cures. Because for every 20 steps, I was using one of my cure spells that I had like 45 of. So it was pretty simple to just keep everybody like that at that high level. So
that's fair. I just loaded up on potions and was just running off potions to heal everybody. And then when I ran out of potions, I'd go to my cures.
Oh, that works. Yeah, but because cures can be healed, I went with cures first over the potions because potions technically cost me money.
That's true, but when I was in a dungeon, sometimes I didn't know how long I'd be stuck in that dungeon, and I know I'm on a limited amount of cures, so I was trying to hold on to those.
I guess.
There was some dungeons, like that ice dungeon, man, I must have went through like 99 potions and like a ton of items. It was painful.
Dear God.
Which is why I highly recommend going the volcano route first.
All right. And then finally, the Fire Fiend is the last thing that I did in the game. Took 3 rounds to kill him. And from there... Oh, and I also used... I had haste at this point, so it kind of speeds up how many attacks you do. My warriors were doing, like, hitting... I think one of them hit, like, 7 times or 8 times.
That's crazy.
He did half the guy's health in one attack. I was like... Man, that's such a sweet strategy. So I think I'll start implementing that a little bit more.
Yeah.
From there, I basically went back to the Crescent Lake, healed, and saved. Haven't touched the game since.
Fair enough. I basically finished the fire dungeon and then went back to... It's a town called Gaia.
Okay.
And that's the one where they got like all the upgraded potion, or like once you're a wizard, then you actually can get like all the extra good... what am I trying to say? Spells.
Yeah, that was a struggle.
I know.
Life's hard some days, you know?
I'm only on 1 cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think this hangover is killing me. I had some good, like, the wifey made me a great breakfast, and so I'm feeling better. And
Nice.
all my errands are done for the week, so don't really have to worry about much. But yeah, my head is just, it's not there, you know?
It happens.
Good. So that's kind of where we left it. According to my guide, I think I have, of the 21 points, I'm at chapter 15 or something, so the second part shouldn't be too bad. I'm guessing there's probably, there's 3 more crystals as well as an end boss to fight, so still should be a good chunk of game to play.
Yeah, I'm on chapter 9 of 13.
Okay, so we're close to the end. So this will be actually a 2-part episode. I'm curious to see how we'll do our 2-part episodes, because I think our only other 2-part episode was us just randomly stopping talking and then like continuing on. So clearly we did one recording and we just sliced it in the middle.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see what the next... We'll have to have some more stuff, I guess, for next episode. So it's just not just like, well, then I went and got the other 2 crystals and beat the game. Well, next time on Podtendo.
Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be good. So current thoughts on this game?
The PlayStation version's kind of nice, especially if you're running it on easy mode, because you get extra XP and stuff, but it doesn't crank down the random encounters, and those are just painful sometimes.
Yeah, that's my notes too, is way too many random encounters.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate graphics that aren't perfect. So, as much as the sprites are like very colorful and leaves lots of the imagination, I always hope for more, like an open world, updated graphics, maybe not with random encounters, maybe with actually like bosses running around the world, like how the new Final Fantasy looks. Might be perfect.
Yeah, I think I played, was it Final Fantasy 12 that had that, where like you can walk out into the desert and there's like a big Tyrannosaurus Rex running around right outside like the gates to the first city.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. I kind of like really, it's not like the enemies give you anything. Like if I had to search, kind of like in Pokemon, like you had to search for certain whether monsters to try and get equipment from, that'd be really annoying. But I really like the simplistic graphics. It leaves a lot to the imagination. You stay.
Also, the characters are really cool, or the monsters are really cool.
Yeah, you stay away from that uncanny valley where like guys start trying to make things that. Yeah, have I
to look too realistic?
Have I explained the uncanny valley on here before?
Yeah, I think it's when it like they look too realistic.
Well, it's
that
not.
They're almost
Yeah, like if you animation when it starts getting too realistic, there's this weird drop off where things look fucking scary, like that Hoodwinked movie. The people in that are the Uncanny Valley because they look just terrifying, like these weird fucking crazy mechanical dolls, and they're not cartoony enough and they're not realistic enough, so your brain can't decide what to do with them. So it stays far away from that kind of that Uncanny Valley. It definitely felt a little bit dated though. I don't know how you're supposed to beat this game without a guide, to be perfectly honest with you.
just hours.
Yeah.
Hours.
Like I mentioned, I wrote down like the conveyance of this game sucks. So here's our learning experience. This episode's word is conveyance. That's the action of transporting something from one place to another. Conveyance. So it's basically when you're walking around in the game and saying, "Where do I go?" The game has bad conveyance. This game has bad conveyance.
Very true. Like, they don't even give you frickin' directions. Like, oh, head northeast. Like, okay, cool, that's easy. It's like, no, go to this cave. And you're like, any direction?
I mean, it's not giant, so it shouldn't take too long. And I mean, realize it's because people were spending $50 on this game back in the day. And they would be like, well, if they beat this game in 2 hours, people would hate it. So let's make a game that has some substance to it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Simple class system, worked really well. The battle system, especially with the auto-aim, it's super easy.
Yeah.
Good. So that's kind of it for my thoughts on the game thus far. Again, we'll have to come up with something, maybe a little different format for the part 2 of this.
Yep.
Because then people are probably dying to know how this game ends.
Yeah, I know. We're leaving you guys on the hook, so you're gonna have to just wonder or beat it yourself.
That's it. Play it yourself. Let us know what you think.
Yep.
So, are you buying it for this week? I actually have found a couple theories. I think we went a couple weeks without any theories other than like Dracula's into BDSM. So,
Yeah.
So, first one, another timeline theory, because people love the timeline theory, especially when we can't explain it properly.
Of course.
So this theory says that all Final Fantasy games exist in the same universe. I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing. All we need to know for this one is Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 9 take place in the exact same location on the same world. Final Fantasy 1 is the legend that is told in Final Fantasy 9. I actually have a relay. If you have my maps or notes page popped up, there's kind of the map for both of the worlds. Are you buying it?
It's kind of flipped a little bit, but the pieces are kind of there. It's close enough. I say they probably were trying to build on it, because I think the guy that made Final Fantasy 9 actually made Final Fantasy 1 or was the kind of the head creator for it, and he said that was his favorite. So I'm assuming that's kind of him kind of being like, oh yeah, let's go back to our roots on this.
Okay.
And like the black mage is the exact same black mage, and the white mage looks like the exact same white mage. So
Yep. That's true, actually. I'm pretty sure when you see Princess Garnet at the very first time, she's got her little hood pulled up over her head and looks
Like the white
exactly
mage.
like the Sprout. The Sprite. Yeah, I think I would have to go back and play Final Fantasy 9, which is something I would kind of like to do, actually.
Yeah, that's a great
I
game.
remember really liking when I played it. I would have to play Final Fantasy 9 again and listen to the lore, because they talk about Golbez as either he's a character in Final Fantasy 9 or he was like a big villain, like a god character that used to exist in that world, something like that. So I think Final Fantasy 9 is supposed to take place like generations after Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah,
And
but like the legend still goes on, passed down from generation to generation.
And obviously, like, it will change a little bit because they don't have Wikipedia in these worlds. They have to rely on scrolls. We know how reliable scrolls are, so.
Of course. I actually have another theory, or I'm not sure if this is like fact or whatever, but in Final Fantasy 2 for the Super Nintendo, which I guess is Final Fantasy 3.
Yep. 4.
4, the one with Cecil.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the game, you go and you kill these 4 people standing around a giant crystal.
Oh, shit.
The theory is that you kill the 4 Warriors of Light from this game.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's... Okay, we're playing Final Fantasy 2 some point really soon, so I really need to check that out.
Yeah, well, just quickly, like really quick at the beginning, and I heard that was just some guy's theory or whatever, but like honestly it kind of makes sense. Like the crystal looks the exact same. You literally walk up to it and there's these 4 like guardians and like, they'll stand our ground. It's like, let's kill you.
Well, that would make sense, especially if it's like years later. Like, you imagine that you're not, like, in fighting shape your whole life. So eventually somebody will come along. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to check that out. So that kind of just... That makes me think that the Final Fantasy timeline does work. What's the other one?
It could.
The other one, quickly, I think it's Final Fantasy X. The people that leave that planet because sin is there, or, like, that world is decimated with sin, they come on a spaceship and they land on the planet of Final Fantasy VII. And they take over the planet from the Cetras.
That could make sense, because I mean there is a lot of advanced technology on that planet, like some pretty advanced technology.
Well, I think in Final Fantasy was it 10-2, you meet a character named something like Kori Shinra.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, you know what? All this, like, when everyone dies, they become this, like, these spirits, and we could definitely power technology with their spirit. And you're like, wow, that's not overt, huh?
That's not a strange thing to jump to.
Yeah. So does that one? It's again.
It might actually make me like Final Fantasy X and 10-2, because that is by far my least favorite Final Fantasy game.
Yeah. It's
god awful.
You know what? I should go back and play it. I have a couple. I think I have it for my PlayStation 4, and I think it's like a pre-owned copy, so maybe I'll bust that out and, like, play through that at some point, and we can do that as, like, a side quest. We can play through all the Final Fantasy games and Zelda games on this podcast.
Yep.
That'd actually be a great accomplishment. That should be one of our goals, is to play through every single, well, the most, like 1, 2, 3, 7. I don't want to play through 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah. See, 8 and 10 are just like dirt to me. It's like,
I'm sure they're fine if I give them a chance, but I just don't like giving things a chance.
well, 8's terrible, and I've dumped many hours into 10, and don't even try. It's terrible. It's garbage.
Yeah.
Like, and you want to know the thing that ruins those games? Not the story or the atmosphere or whatever. It's the freaking the system. It's the battling system and the skill system.
Yep.
They're terrible.
Yep.
It's like, let's make these as convoluted as garbage as possible. So even if you do it right, you're still kind of be missing things. You're like, this is so stupid.
Yeah, and I think they hit the nail on the head when they came to Final Fantasy VII with the materia, and everyone could do everything. And trying to go away from that, it's just, they shouldn't have. They hit pay dirt. Everyone liked it, and then they changed it, and they had a
then they ended up going back to it, number 9.
Well, see,
and then
Final Fantasy IX was class-based, right? Like, everyone is a class. Yeah. Like, Steiner was your warrior, he was your knight. Yeah. Zidane was your thief character. So they had, like, all the archetypes. Actually, it's going to be a lot of fun if we ever go play that after looking at this game, because you're going to say, oh, look, there's the 6 classes. How neat is that?
Yeah.
Right? So...
Especially when you get to the monk and forget who the assassin character is designed, but he's basically like a monk. He even uses, like, the tiger claws and everything, which is pretty rad.
Yeah. And for some reason, there's, like, this weird cat summoner person named Eco. I want to go back and play Final Fantasy IX at some point, so...
Yeah, that game is pretty amazing.
So maybe I'll save that for the next podcast, actually. Just quickly, let's just talk about... Do you want to talk about religion in Final Fantasy, or should we maybe leave that for the next? Because this, like, I might do some more research, and we can talk about just the religion in Final Fantasy in the series as a whole.
Yeah, well, maybe just for sake of adding stuff to part 2, because I feel like if we don't,
it's gonna be
part 2 might be a little bit lacking.
Yeah, well, this one's already going, or like we're almost at like an hour right now. So by the time we edit it down, it might be like maybe like 50 minutes. The next one might be like 30. That's not terrible. No. But so we didn't miss anything.
Not really. I mean, there's some specific weapons and stuff that you can get, but they're not necessary.
Okay, well, let's maybe delve more into some of those specifics, and we could talk about favorite weapons or like fun combinations that we found, or favorite spells, and do a little bit more detail orientation on the next episode.
Or how about monsters that you frickin' hated?
Yeah, like top like favorite monsters or something, like favorite monster, least favorite monster.
Yep.
All right.
And why?
Cool. All right.
Yes.
So with that, thank you for listening. You can contact Podtendo on Twitter at Podtendo Podcast, email us at podtendo@gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Podtendo. The music Podtendo was used without permission and is property of Nintendo.